Hello everyone, welcome to the spoiler talk for Iron Fist Season 2, and what has happened, boys? I do not understand. The quality has gone up like you wouldn't even believe. I'm confused about this whole thing because this episode was really good. It was a really good opener into this season. So the season starts off with the fact that Danny is now taking over Matt's duty as the protector of New York, I guess, as he promised Matt to do in the Defenders, and he stops a robbery between two triads. So, yeah, a triad war is coming. At least that is something that is known. One triad doesn't rob the other triad without a war breaking out. Also, Colleen has quit fighting. She has put up her sword since the end of the Defenders. Outside of that little hiccup in Luke Cage Season 2. That little bar fight. Outside of that, she's hung up her sword. And Davos is dealing with Yang from Luke Cage Season 2. However, he has increased the price, and that is something that Davos isn't necessarily happy about. But it looks like he really has no choice but to accept it. And also, Danny has a day job at a moving company, which is surprising, but also not really. If you watch the first season and you know his character, he is not about the money. Even if you just watch the episode from Luke Cage Season 2, he is not about that money. I guess he just wants to be down with the people. I guess that's the best way to explain it. And also, Colleen is now a volunteer since she isn't training students anymore after, you know, they all got sent to the hand and all that stuff happened. So she's now volunteering. However, there she finds a weird box with her family crest on it, which causes her to go on a bit of an investigation mission. So she asks who brought in the box and goes to that location, but it's closed. Then a nearby person she asks for information, who then sends her over to Mr. Yip, who owns a restaurant, the Silver Lotus. So she heads over there, saves him from some hatchet thugs by threatening to call the cops, and then she asks for information and he pretends like he doesn't know, so that really didn't go anywhere. Also, Danny meets a woman named Mary, who is going to be a big part of this season, and also she was supposed to be the villain of Season 4 had Netflix continued on the Daredevil series, which that information kind of makes me happy that we didn't get a Season 4, because what do you mean you weren't going to focus on Bullseye? But later on, Mary goes home and she finds a bunch of notes around her house because of the fact that apparently she has something called DID, but we'll get more into that probably as the season continues on. So Ward calls Danny because of a meeting, and they both go to the meeting, and Ward is like, really, a moving company? When is this whole like stuff gonna end, huh? When are you gonna come back to being a part of Rand? But the meeting was actually asked for by Joy because she wants money and she wants her like designs, and she just wants out of the Rand company. Now obviously Ward doesn't want that to happen because I guess he just doesn't want to lose his sister, and signing would mean that he would lose his sister. But then he's like, I want to close this whole thing off, let's just sign. And then he tries to be nice to Joy, but it's not really working, my boy. I mean, you have some kind of an effect, but it's not really working. Ward's also in NA, probably because of the drug use, so yeah, he's not in the mood for that one. However, I will say that this time it was absolutely a banging session, and Joy and Davos really want to hurt Danny because they both blame Danny for everything going wrong. I also like how this season is basically just Doctor Strange 2. Like, if you look at Doctor Strange, the first movie, and also Iron Fist Season 1, they have very much in common in that sense with the ending, basically, where, you know how Mordo wasn't happy about what happened with Doctor Strange and what he did? Yeah, and Davos is kind of like in that same vein with Iron Fist and what he did. So it's very much the same. However, the thing is, unlike Doctor Strange 2, which never got made, we actually do get Iron Fist Season 2, because we basically just got Multiverse of Madness, which is not it, okay? I'm not comparing this season to Multiverse of Madness. I'm talking about what the sequel to the first Doctor Strange movie that we never got to see, that happened off screen. But also, Joy has some small problems with going after Danny because he's just such a nice guy, and I will be honest here, he truly is. So then at the evening, Danny and Colleen talk about their day, I guess, and Colleen mentions about the family crest and how she wanted to go to a guy and she couldn't get the information that she needed. So Danny's like, well, he owns a restaurant, right? The Silver Lotus. Let's go out to dinner. Let's go on a date. So they go on a date together over there. However, then there's some trouble that comes in, as in the Hatchet men come in, or the Hatchet boys, I guess. They were all pretty much underage. So the Hatchet boys, because they want the protection money that the Tigers were getting. Yeah, like I said, Triad War is on its way. So then Colleen and Danny tried to stop it. However, then the Tigers arrive, so the two get split up because Danny now has to stop Tigers from entering the kitchen, because if they do, blood is gonna be spilled, and Colleen needs to convince the Hatchet boys to stop what they're doing and leave before anyone dies. So Colleen takes on everyone in the kitchen while Danny takes on everyone in the restaurant itself. But it also seems like even though he talked about stillness in Luke Cage Season 2, he may not have fully achieved that himself, because he's ready to punch someone in the face with the iron fist, and Colleen stops him. So then the owner is like, okay, look, okay, the guy that you're looking for is hiding from the tigers. Okay, that's all the information that they get. And it's like, that's not really much information, but sure, we'll get back to him probably later for more information. But date night is now done, you know. Couldn't call it the more perfect date night ever, because it was a dinner and a fight, you know. Couldn't be more perfect. So as they are walking home, Davos wants to talk to Danny, and Davos has some questions. However, he never really gets to ask any questions. Danny and Davos just have a little bit of a sparring match, and we fight, as you could say. But Davos has to prevent himself from killing Danny, and he keeps focusing on the Iron Fist. Like, if you could go back in time, would you change the outcome of what happened? And Danny's like, I can't go back in time. And it basically becomes obvious to, I don't know if it's everyone, but to me anyway, that Davos just wants the Iron Fist. That's what he's after. So Davos goes back to Joy and is like, okay, yeah, the plan must happen. And Danny at night goes underground and punches a metal door. So it seems like his anger issues are actually around. I don't know why. Maybe because the fact that Kunlun doesn't necessarily exist anymore. But anyway, it was a great start, and I can't wait to see what happens in the rest of the season. So then episode 2 starts off with a guy just being murdered by the Hatchet men. And Danny is also around that street. So when the guy walks outside with, you know, the wounds, Danny tries to help him, but everyone is too scared to really help. So the dude, I guess, died while the intro happened. So as Danny is walking away from that thing, he sees Mary again, and he has a little bit of a chat with her. However, then she gets a wee bit dizzy, so Danny's like, come upstairs, I'll give you something to drink. And she meets Colleen as well. However, then her head starts to hurt even more, so she goes to the bathroom and turns on the water and just wastes water for no reason at all. And then afterwards, I guess another personality took over, because she is just like, alright, I need to leave. Yeah, I had an appointment. Goodbye. An entirely different person in a way. Meanwhile, Colleen is going to be searching for Choi. Maybe she could find something about him. She already searched his apartment. She goes over to the place that she volunteers for information. However, there a file on Choi, who actually did come here once. That file is gone, and apparently the person who keeps track of all of that stuff is really well organized. So it's weird that happened. So as she leaves, she walks and she sees the fact that someone is in danger. So she tries to help. However, turns out it was a setup to lure her here in order to maybe kill her. But then Colleen disarms the kid, and then the kids run away because it's the same kids from the first episode. And she chases them and is like, look, okay, you guys are obviously not Hatchet men, or Hatchet boys, I guess. And also, you are not tigers. If you need food and shelter, we have that, okay? I volunteer somewhere where we have that. And then it's like, oh, you're trying to help us even though we're trying to kill you. But then, you know, it doesn't really work. So Colleen leaves. But then a kid called Bibi tells her that there's gonna be a war brewing between the Hatchetmen and the tigers, but that the Hatchets are going to be planning a big attack on the tigers. Also, throughout this episode, we have the flashback on the final battle on who gets to have the chance to battle the dragon. We have the fight between Danny and Davos, and they get the Iron Fist mask, so they were able to put them in after all. Why is that not? Why didn't you just put that in? Look, okay, that terrible costume from episode 1. Like, you could have given him the Iron Fist mask, okay? Like, why didn't you just give us, like, a newer, like, an updated version of the mask that he wears in Kunlun, you know? That would have been cool. But anyway, we get to see the mask here. Also, where the thumbnail for the review came from. But it's actually a pretty cool fight, and I'm really happy about it. So then, Danny, in present day, he heads over to Yang in order to potentially stop the war from happening. However, he is 100% unsuccessful, and he loses everything that he has after he punches the desk with the Iron Fist, and is like, dude, you gotta look into those anger issues, man. And while all that is happening, Ward is also very curious about what Joy is up to. So he goes over to her after yelling at his assistant, apologizing, and actually liking his assistant. At least he says something that he likes, and I am not gonna repeat that here because that is more those words are more used for the Let's Play channel rather than the APR channel. We're not doing that here. I'm trying to keep this as kid friendly as possible. So no cursing as long as I can help it. So he heads over to a party where Joy is at, and he tries to talk to her. However, she doesn't really want to talk to him, and also she knows about his meetings that he has for his problems. I forgot the acronym. I apologize. But then Davos is like, the item that, you know, we want, we can get it now. So Joy is like, I'm done with my brother. Goodbye. And so Davos and Joy head over, and they want a specific bowl. Apparently, they're gonna need that. However, they need it now. They can't wait like a month or so. They need it now. So then Joy has the idea, hey, why don't you just seduce her? That way we can get the bowl by, you know, bribing her husband. And that works flawlessly, absolutely flawlessly. She is into some weird stuff, I will say that right now. So now that we have failed at Yang's, Colleen makes the suggestion that we should go after Yang's wife instead, because she is apparently at the volunteers place for the gambling thing. So we go over there in order to try and ask her for help. However, initially she doesn't want to do it, but Colleen is very adamant, and then she gets what she wants. However, apparently the hatchets were going to attack a memorial that the Tigers have for their fallen soldiers, and we narrowly are able to call that bad boy off with the help of Yang's wife. So that's good. So apparently Yang is gonna do some peace talks with the Tigers in order for the dock. By the way, this is Red Hook from Daredevil Born Again. I didn't notice that until I looked it up, but actually this is Red Hook, so they're fighting over Red Hook. I like how, even though it's 100% unintentional, this is still like a link to like the Defender stuff for Daredevil Born Again. But also that means that Yang has to return the money to Davos because the Tigers want the pier. So if he has to give up the pier for peace, he might do that, and that means he can't fulfill the promise to Davos. However, Davos is not necessarily happy about it, so he hits him in the neck 3 times and then walks off, and then Yang dies in his chair. And you also saw, if you pay close attention, at least it looked that way, during the fight with Danny, Davos kind of instantly already tried to do the 3-tap in order to take Danny out, which also it seems like his dad noticed as well. And also during that flashback fight that they have, initially it starts off equal. Also, they are tied together, but then later on Davos just breaks that. It's like, you can why tie them together if he's just allowed to break that? But anyway, Davos eventually gets the upper hand, and Danny is in a tough spot until he notices the sun, so he blinds Davos and beats him and wins. And he cannot do it. He cannot punch Davos to death in that sense, because either you yield or you die, and Davos ain't yielding. So then the fight gets called when Danny has won. So what Davos said in the first episode was kind of wrong. Davos was like, I won. It's like, no, Danny won, actually. He had you down, and he was ready to knock you out or kill you. And that's when the dad called off the fight. So you did not win that fight, good sir, unless we're now seeing a fake flashback, and later on we're gonna get the real flashback. And then to end the episode, Mary has some pictures of Daddy, so she seems to be really interested in Colleen's man. Let's see how Colleen's gonna handle that. So Danny has been busy trying to keep the violence to a minimum from the triads that are, you know, fighting each other. However, Colleen is a little bit worried about Danny and, you know, how many times he lights up that fist at night and all that stuff. So Danny tries to evade the whole conversation by focusing on something of hers, but that doesn't really work. But he does get away with it. And also we got a nice little reference to Matthew Murdock. You love to hear it, man. I mean, he's my favorite character of the Defenders, everyone's, I think. So for me, it's just like whenever I hear him, I do get a little smile. Also, Ward is at the NA meeting. I once again knew what it was called, and he accuses everyone because apparently his sister knew, and he wants to know who told his sister. And then he kind of gets kicked out because of the fact that that is not really welcome at an NA meeting, you know? These people are trying to kick drugs, and you're basically calling everyone a prick, basically. He said a different word, but I'm gonna go with prick. So later, Ward goes to Danny, and he talks about the fact that his sister is now in leagues with a guy named Davos, which instantly catches Danny's attention when he says that. I mean, he says like Davos, but why would Joy be in contact with Davos or Davos or whatever you want to call him? Why would he do that? So then Ward is like, wait, maybe your idea might not be so bad. Maybe we should just have dinner with him, you know? Maybe just dinner. However, don't say that I'm coming, because that will ruin everything and she won't come if I'm there. So don't say that I'm coming. And it's like, I don't think that's such a good idea. I feel like lying to her back in season 1 kind of led to this whole thing, so it may not be the best option to just lie to her again. But we are going to. So Colleen breaks into Choi's store in order to search for anything related to him. However, BB followed her in, apparently, and he talks to her a little bit. However, she then gets up on a chair, which she's not allowed to, according to Choi, at least. Choi doesn't want anyone on that chair. That's what BB said. So Colleen instantly rotates the chair around. It's like, oh, a book. We're gonna take that book with us. Here, you can have the plastic. You want a 50%? I get the book, you get the plastic. Also, Danny comes home with some groceries for tonight's dinner. They're making spaghetti, which big fan of. I am against one thing, but we'll get there when the dinner happens. But as he puts the groceries down on the table, something gets slit under his door, so he grabs it and he opens the door. It's like, Mary? And then he follows her, asks for questions, and then Mary basically tells him, someone named Walker is after you. And it's like, well, there are a couple of people in the MCU named Walker, so it could be any of them, but hey. And then she vanishes. So let's get ready for dinner as Colleen and Danny are together handling the food. And it instantly kind of goes wrong, but also not really, because like Joy and Danny are like, hey, and Colleen and Davos are like, you. They're just angry at each other. So it kind of goes a little bit sideways, but not really. They have a nice talk until the dinner actually happens. And then Davos kind of attacks Colleen, at which point Colleen is like, I'm done with this whole pretending to be nice thing, okay? Let's hash everything out, okay? Let's bury the hatchet and talk it out. And some talks get to happening, but not a lot. Davos eventually gets angry and walks away, sees the pictures that Mary gave to Danny, and then he's like, okay, we gotta go. So we pack up our things and go. But before that, let's mention the fact that Ward also was supposed to be here, which makes Joy even more angry. So it's like, that might not have been the best play, but let's see how it plays out. Doesn't play out well. Also, Ward is a no-show, which still feels weird to say Ward after 3 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but hey, yeah, he's a no-show. Instead, he goes to the NA woman and he tries to apologize, but she's like, no, unless you repair your relationship with your sister, you're never gonna be able to have a real relationship with anyone else, so I would like you to leave. So that didn't really go well. So everything is going wrong. However, Mrs. Yang calls Colleen because she is now going to be the head of the meeting since her husband is dying. Let's be honest here, he's dying. I thought he was already dead, but he's dying. So Colleen and Danny, they agree to go with her in order to protect her in case stuff happens. So initially the meeting goes, well, it goes fine-ish. I mean, we'll give you the red dog beer, but we want 45%. It's like, no. 10%, no. 20%, no. You know, like they start arguing about percentages, but then Danny looks out the window and he sees a couple of guys scheming and it's like, what is this? This is a trap. You need to leave now, Mrs. Yang. And then we have a bit of a fight scene. Danny takes out a bunch of guys with his iron fist and table maneuver. Also, Colleen almost gets killed by someone until Mrs. Yang stabs the dude in the eye, which was actually a pretty cool scene. And I was just like, can nothing go right today? Everything goes horribly. The NA meeting couldn't have gone worse. The dinner couldn't have gone worse. The meeting couldn't have gone worse. Everything goes terribly today, but we are able to escape it, Mrs. Yang. And then to end the episode, it is revealed that Mary actually works for Joy and Davos, and she was hired for some kind of job. We don't really know what the job is, but she was hired by them, and also she is the Walker that was spoken of before. Yes, her name is Mary Walker, so when she was like, Walker's watching you, it was one of her other personalities, I guess. Also, you can see her reaction was like, how did Danny get the phone? It's like, oh man, that was one of my other personalities. Thank you, other personality, for being just the worst. Alright, I'm trying to do my job and then you're just ruining everything. However, she also grabs some blades from under the table and holds them towards Davos. This is one of those moments where we start in the future and then we have to work our way towards it. So in the future, Mary has taken out Danny. How did she do it? I don't know. Let's find out. So earlier that day, Colleen and Danny try to figure out what happened during the meeting and how it all went wrong. What Danny actually saw, because it seemed like they were not the Golden Tigers, but they also weren't hatchets, the people that Danny saw. So what was happening? Also, apparently, Mary has been tracking Danny for about 60 days, and the NA woman is still into Ward. Alright, don't necessarily care, but good for them. Good for them. But that also isn't, I don't know. It's weird. It feels really weird. She's like, you can't have a relationship, but then still engages in like a relationship with him. I find that weird. However, now Danny and Colleen need to figure out how to get Mrs. Yang once again again back to the table in order to discuss a peace because of the fact that we need that peace in order for destruction not to reign the streets. So we go over to her and we meet a familiar face from earlier in the season. However, Mrs. Yang does want to speak, and she's like, well, we don't really have a bargaining chip because the Golden Tigers, they took the dogs by force. And then he gets a little bit more disrespectful, so he gets excused from the meeting. However, he does say before he leaves, like, your husband and I, we may not have agreed, but we had a mutual respect for each other. And he leaves. However, there was a mysterious door, so now that, you know, no one's around, let's explore the mystery door. And what's in there is the fact that her husband is lying there, and he's apparently had a stroke, which also she said earlier. But Danny inspects and is like, oh no, wait, this was Davos's doing. He did this. And luckily enough, Mr. Yang is able to speak the words Hancock 212. And that's all he's able to say before, I guess, dying. However, seems like he was just a real big fan of the movie Hancock. I don't know, maybe he's a Will Smith fan, who knows. So as they go outside and they want to figure out what was wrong, Misty arrives. Hey Misty, how's it going? And she really needs to talk to the two of them. So then we get the reveal that what Danny actually saw outside were not Golden Tigers and hatchet men, as was initially known. They were instead undercover cops. And also, Danny hurt one of the undercover officers who was the right-hand man of the Golden Tigers. So, yeah, that wasn't really good. So, Misty's like, you should back off from this. And Danny's like, I'm not gonna back off from this because there are forces at play here that are beyond what you can do. And she's like, let us handle it. And he's like, no, I don't think I can let you do that because Davos is involved and I have to stop Davos. However, I'm gonna go outside and, you know, just to clear my head. So he goes outside and he's like, what am I doing? I could just leave. And he leaves. Also, Joy stays behind at Mary's and Davos leaves in order to prepare the ritual. And we get the reveal of the DID and the fact that she has multiple personalities. And also the fact that in the last episode she was saying the truth. She did not give those pictures. It was the other personality of hers. However, after finding it out and almost killing Joy, Joy is like, oh, okay, yeah, I trust you, okay? If you say you can get the job done, you can get the job done, okay? Don't worry about it. I'm gonna leave now. Bye. So Davos goes to the pier in order to pick up the package that needs to happen. First, he takes out all the Golden Tigers because they were not in on the deal. And the package turns out to be the dead body of a former Iron Fist. Someone else who held the fist, who has the mask and the logo on the chest. So Davos cuts out the logo and takes that thing with him. What is wrong with you? So then later on, Danny arrives and sees the carnage, goes inside and sees the body of the dead Iron Fist, I guess. I don't know. Without the logo, it's hard to tell if he actually knows that it is a dead Iron Fist. But Misty's like, look, this is an active crime scene. I need you to stay here as a witness to tell me what you saw. And he's like, no, I have to leave. So after a little bit of a fight with Colleen allows him to leave. Meanwhile, Ward tries to make things right with his sister by buying the company that Joy wanted and gifting it to her. And she is 100% upset about that and is like, okay, yeah, Ward, at this point, I don't think you should really blame yourself for this anymore, okay? Look, you are trying your hardest and she doesn't want it, okay? Maybe just accept that and move on to make a better relationship with someone else. Maybe that an A woman. So then as Danny is heading to, I don't know where he's heading. He's just in the subway. He gets attacked and also sedated by Mary. And she fights him off. She actually holds her own very well against him. But that's also because she has been studying him for 60 days. And I think also she did something early to him. I was writing at the beginning of the fight, so I did not really see that. But he looks like he has been sedated. So she basically takes him out and then takes him to Davos, who is getting a serpent tattooed on his back from, don't be grossed out by this, but basically they took the Iron Fist logo, the skin, and they put that into a bowl, burn it, and then they cut into Danny, and they take his blood and put it in the bowl as well, and then they use that in order to cut into, well, technically kind of cut into Davos in order to tattoo into him the serpent, which makes me go, wait a minute, so isn't he supposed to get a disease from that, or is Danny's blood like an all-you-can-use type of blood? Because I feel like if you use the wrong type of blood, you can kind of contaminate Davos, you know? But whatever. And he's ready to take the Iron Fist from Danny. And apparently you can just do that. I didn't know, but apparently that's something you can do. But Colleen now needs to figure out how to save Danny because she knows that he's missing because she was on the phone at the end of the fight when Danny was losing to Mary. So the episode starts off with our new main character because of the fact this show is called the Iron Fist, so we have to follow the Iron Fist. This time it's Davos. We don't get to see how he took the Iron Fist from Danny. It just happened off screen. But he has the Iron Fist. It's red. He's punching something. Then he hears a man in trouble being chased by tigers. Like, not the animal, but the people. And so Davos goes over there, saves the guy, but kills the bad guys. And he's basically gonna go on a rampage now across crime. He's going Punisher style. Let's be honest about that one. It's just Punisher style. He's gonna kill all the bad guys. Meanwhile, Colleen is worried about Danny, and together with Misty, they start searching for Danny. And also, Mary leaves Danny on a bench under a bridge, makes a video of the wound, and gives him an adrenaline shot and runs away. So she shows off the video to Joy, who initially doesn't want to see the video yet, but it's like, nope, you gotta watch the video. So she watches it. She's a bit hurt by it, it seems, and she'll pay Mary later on. However, before Mary leaves, Mary is like, yeah, about that Davos fellow. He is, he's kind of sick in the head, isn't he? Alright, he's dangerous. I would watch my back around him, okay? But don't worry about it. The deal between Davos and Joy is done. They're done with each other. They probably won't be seeing each other again. So Danny is walking around very hurt. However, he runs into the kids, you know, the underground kids. And they kidnap him because they want to sell him off to the tigers, which is gonna be a little bit of a problem because of the fact that Davos enters a club, beats a lot of people, and then kills the leader of the tigers. And then one other guy with an eye patch is there like, I know more people, okay, you can kill, don't kill me, please, I'll give you all the information that you need, please, let me be your informant, please, don't kill me. And I was like, meet me here in 2 hours with the list or I will find you and you will be on the top of said list. And also we get some past stuff as well. The first one doesn't necessarily matter, it's basically just like some discipline stuff, but the second one is when Davos lost to Danny. His mom is cleaning him and she's like, you are just such a disappointment, aren't you? You know, you gave the Iron Fist to an outsider. Such a shame. You've disappointed me. So Colleen has the idea to give the pictures to Ward so that he can get some fingerprints off of it, because with the cops, as Misty would say, it takes 24 hours, so that takes too long. So then he is chained up and he wants to escape, so he readies his fist and there is no fist, so he breaks his hand on the chain basically. He punches it in order to break free, but like there's no fist anymore. And then he asks BB for help. However, maybe BB will help. Also, the information about the attack on the tigers comes to Misty and Colleen, and they head over to the club. And the moment that it's like, oh yeah, the fist was red, it's like, oh, that's not Danny. That wasn't Danny because he's got that yellow fist. So they instantly know that Davos is the one who was behind all of this. So Joy invites Davos over in order to settle matters. Okay, we are done. Our partnership is done. You can now leave New York and leave me be. And Davos is like, no, it's only beginning. My work, at least, is only beginning. I will take care of all the crime by killing everyone. And I'm kind of like, this is why you didn't win during the battle against Danny. But Joy is not really happy about that. And also with the warning from Mary, that also doesn't really make her happy. So then Colleen gets a call, we can all assume from BB, about where Danny is at. So they go over there right as Danny's finger is about to be clipped off. And Misty stops it, and then they take Danny away. And they need a doctor, but they can't go to a hospital. Too much public press. So Ward gets called, and he brings his NA woman to help Danny. And she actually does, but then afterwards she's like, I'm not doing this anymore, okay? Call someone else from this time onwards. I shouldn't have even accepted your call to begin with. But Ward also has some new information for us about Mary. Apparently she was special ops. That's why she is so good at what she does. And he is also worried about Joy, obviously, because of the fact after the whole Davos is revealed to him as well. He wants Joy to be safe because they were in contact. So Misty and Colleen are like, we're gonna go and pick up Davos, you stay here with Danny. So they leave, and later on, Ward talks to Danny about his NA meetings. So at least he was able to say it to somebody who didn't hear it from somebody else. So that's nice. But they have a very brotherly bond in this episode, and I love the way the talk that they have. I love it. I'm a big fan of it. I like these two together, especially since the development. Yes, season 1 isn't really that good, but I will say that Ward was actually an entertaining character in that season. And going from the only one who hated Danny, even after it was was officially revealed that he was Danny Rand to now being like a brother to him. I've loved that development. So Mary comes by, picks up her cash, and then Joy's like, I want to hire you as my bodyguard in order to stop Davos. And she's like, no, but you can hire me to kill Davos right now. I'll do that. And before she can answer, knocking on the door, because Carlina and Misty are here to pick up Joy. So Joy opens up the door, but she's acting a wee bit sketchy. So Misty's like, oh, there's someone else here. So she walks in, and then Mary pops out and fights and beats Misty and Colleen. However, right before Colleen can be stabbed to death, Misty points a gun at Mary and tells her to surrender, and Mary actually does surrender. And then they go back to the dojo where they reveal the truth. We have the truth reveal. Joy says, plain and simple, I hired Mary and I knew what Davos was planning to do to you, and I still went along with it. So yeah, the ultimate truth has been revealed. Told you, Ward, you don't need to blame yourself. This is an evil witch. Simple as that. Alright, boys, over halfway done with this season already, and it feels good. This episode had me on the edge of my seat. I was hyped for this episode. So this episode starts off with Misty questioning Mary and Joy. However, there are gonna be no arrests because we also might need them story-wise. So Colleen and Misty, because of the fact of the interrogation, go over to the Crane sisters while Ward has to babysit once again. And also, by the way, the guy with the eye patch thing, I'm gonna call him Patch from this point forward. So Davos and Patch are also going around New York City in order to cross people off the list. That is basically what they are doing, and I think Patch is a great character for Davos, because he's like, this guy's just insane, but whatever, you know what? As long as I'm not on the list, that's fine. But this guy is absolutely a lunatic. So, should we get something to eat? No? Okay, yeah, okay. Of course. You know, the guy who wants to kill everyone is vegan of all things. My goodness, this is just disgraceful. I loved Patch in this episode. However, Mary is ready to escape until Joy is going to pay her for killing Davos. That is the plan. So she frees herself very easily and then walks out and is like, you guys can't take me, but I will help you see Davos. I'll take you to him. You know what? You want to talk to Davos? I can get you to him, okay? But before we leave, Mary also reveals that the NA info actually did come from her because she studied her opponent, I guess, that also being Ward. So Davos gets to a location in order to kill some people. However, the kids that we see throughout the season, they see Davos go in, and Davos takes note of them, and later on he is actually interested in them because he asks Patch about them. So maybe they could be added to the list. Who knows? I mean, this guy just does not care about anything. He'll add anyone to the list. So Danny and Mary leave, and they go to Mary's place in order to pick up some gear. And this is also where Mary reveals to Danny that she has the ID, and I don't know why she did that. I mean, later on Danny is like, it was a tactic, but I'm like, what kind of tactic is that? I mean, maybe it is in order to bring Walker back, but that yeah, no, that's not really gonna work. So Ward and Joy are alone, and they have a little bit of an argument, but eventually Ward tells Joy of all of the abuse that he suffered at the hands of their dad. You remember when we went skiing and I broke this? Yeah, that was that. You remember when I had that car crash and I had bruises all over? Yeah, that was that. You know, I saved you from decades of abuse, okay? However, sadly enough, the bond between them is fully broken, and it seems like Joy does not really have any intention of fixing it, because at the end she says goodbye, Ward. So Danny and Mary get to the location, and Danny's like, give me the syringe with the knockout stuff, because of the fact that it'll be better if I do it, and also with your DID, it could be triggered, who knows? And I also can't really trust you. And then later on he figures out that Mary is actually here to kill Davos, and he's like, hey, you want the cabin in the woods, right? Just a cabin all alone? I can make it happen. I'll give you a cabin, I'll give you enough food to last a lifetime, don't worry about it. You have nothing to fear. But we stick to the plan. We take Davos in, and you have your cabin and free food for the rest of your life. And so she's like, okay, let's stick to the plan then. Sure, why not? I just need the cabin. That's all I want. So yeah, I'm in. So Colleen and Misty get to the location of the sisters, and there's a little bit of a fight that happens with Colleen beating up two of them and Misty going after the third. And eventually we get all the information about the ritual that we need, and they agree to help us perform the ritual in order to pull an Uno reverse on Davos and give the power back to Danny, if at all possible. So Davos gets home, he goes downstairs downstairs in order to, I guess, rest. And then he sees Danny, and he's like, brother, I want you on my side. We could do this together. And then he's trying to get through to Davos about the fact that killing is wrong. However, Davos won't listen, and then Mary sneaks up behind him and gets to use the syringe on him. However, the thing is, Davos uses 2 iron fists and then blasts them away, and he breaks Danny's leg. However, the syringe does work eventually, and he gets knocked out. So Walker grabs Danny, gets him upstairs, splints his leg, I guess. I don't know. She just put like a belt around his leg and just like tightened it, and that's basically all she did. And then she calls the ambulance, and then Danny's like, think about the plan, okay? We still have the plan that we need to do. And then the ambulance arrives, and the flashing lights, as she said earlier, causes Mary to come back, boys. Walker's gone. And then Mary leaves because she will not let Walker take her to the cabin, okay? She wants to live her life, and she doesn't want to be stopped. It's kind of like that whole launch situation, or lunch if you watch the subbed version, I guess. But yeah, so Davos is now lying somewhere. Mary has left the building. Danny's in an ambulance, and everything is just going wrong. So who knows if we'll be able to get our hands on the Uno reverse or not, because maybe by the time that help can arrive, Davos could be gone. So then he gets operated in the hospital, and he also gets a new brace from Rand, obviously, you know, I mean, it's kind of his name on the building, so, and it's gonna help him heal faster. Meanwhile, Patch fights the kids, and Davos comes in and wants them to join him, become his students. And I guess he's kind of searching for some bodies to throw into Danny's way, you know, to kind of stop him from taking back the fist. Also, Misty goes over to Pike, who is basically the cop of this district, and he actually likes the fact that the new Iron Fist is killing people, or the Steel Serpent, I guess. But he likes that. He loves the fact that they're killing, because, you know, it's like, hey, that'll be way less work for me, you know? A lot of less killing on the streets as well, so who cares? You know, only the bad guys get killed. Yeah, that's not really entirely true, because Davos has a weird sense of justice. Also, Colleen's been working on the ledger. One day that will come back, I hope. I actually don't remember if that one really comes back, but she's apparently working on it, and she doesn't really make sense of all of it. So then he leaves the hospital, comes back home, and Misty leaves to go to Joy in order to get some information about the bowl. And she gets the information about the bowl, kind of. She gets sent to that woman from before. Also, Ward's a wreck after his sister basically cut off all contact with him, and the fact that Danny is now in the hospital, that has taken a toll on him. And NA lady comes over to him, but he doesn't want to hear it. And then later on, he wants to go into NA. However, he hears NA lady say that she's pregnant now with his kid. So Davos decides, I need more, okay? The triad is one thing, but like, I need everything, okay? I want to upgrade myself down to petty crime, because there are a couple of guys breaking into a car, and Davos kills them for it. Because yeah, that's what you do. No, dude. Hey, justice is not killing them, okay? Just like Matt always says, they could be doing something better. Like he said on that rooftop to Punisher, given a second chance, these people might actually be able to do something good. So we can put them in jail or give them a warning. There's no need to kill everybody. So Davos is just full on going Punisher, but then less cool, obviously. So Misty heads over to the lady, and she has a scroll, which she opens up, and it basically is an instruction manual on how to perform the ritual. So she takes a couple of pictures of that, and also takes a picture of something else, and then afterwards she leaves. So Joy goes to pay a visit to Mary. However, what she doesn't know is that Mary is actually the one in control, and Walker isn't. And Mary has the water on the entire time because of the fact that, number one, I don't think she really cares about the water bill, and number two, it's the only way to keep herself in control and not let Walker take over. But it's a nice visit, and also it gives Mary some perspective about Walker, because Mary always only knew the bad stuff that Walker did. However, back in the day, they were being held captive in Sokovia, and I guess Walker kept the two of them alive. So there must be some good in Walker. So Misty comes back with the pictures, gives the pictures to Danny. Danny translates the text, and also, obviously, the information comes out that it's the only bowl, so we need to get that specific bowl. However, that's not the only thing we need, because while Misty goes off to, I don't know, she can't be in the next couple episodes, okay? We need her back for the finale, but we don't have the money in order to pay the actors for the whole season, okay? You can be in a couple episodes, like 6 or 7, but you're not the whole season. At least I don't think she's in the next episode. But she goes off to, I don't know, recruit people. She's kind of doing the Daredevil Born Again thing. Have fun, Misty. And Danny wants Colleen to trade him, and she says no. know, but after he flails about trying to train himself, Colleen decides to accept it and say yes. At least that's how the episode ends. So Mary decides to sit down and record a message for Walker before she hands over control back to Walker about the fact that maybe she's not that bad of a person. Now let's hope that Walker reads it. I mean, she does put a note on the thing, please read, so let's hope that she reads it. And finally for this episode, Joy goes over to Davos in order to quote-unquote rejoin him, but what she really wants is the bowl. However, he is keeping the bowl in a safe place, and also the kids arrive for their training. So yeah, we got about 3 episodes left. Let's see where this is headed. We gotta get that fist back. So we got a little bit of a double training to start this episode off. We have Colleen training Danny, and we have Davos training his youngling. So then at night, Davos goes off to go for Yang. However, because of Colleen's flyers, she gets notified about the location, and her and Danny also head off to protect Miss Yang, who is actually the target this time around. So they're able to get her out. Colleen fights against Patch, very nice, and is able to make the grand escape into the car. And we're off, which means that Davos is very upset about Patch because of the fact, how were they able to escape? It's like, well, apparently there's flyers. I didn't know, but apparently there's flyers. Also, just as a little thing that I thought of while watching this episode, you see like the entrance to the lair for Davos, and that reminds me of the 2003 TMNT show, because that is where like the battle shell was always sparked. I don't know, just a little thing that I noticed. Meanwhile, Walker has returned to us, boys, and she looks at the message from Mary. However, there's a little bit of a problem, because the moment that Sokovia gets mentioned, she's like, what? By the way, this is not a reference to Avengers Age of Ultron. This happened prior to Avengers Age of Ultron. But like, she's confused about the fact when Mary says that you saved us from Sokovia. It's like, she's kind of like, well, I didn't. So she goes to see someone, and he kind of deduces maybe there's a third inside of her. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, so we're doing the Moon Knight thing here, but we have a third now. And I guess the third one is really what Daredevil would potentially be going up against in the unreleased season 4 of Daredevil. I still think they should have gone with, you know, Bullseye like they did in Born Again, kind of. But they should have gone with Bullseye instead of going with Walker as the main baddie. But hey, that's just me, you know? So Danny and Colleen get Miss Yang to the community center where she volunteers. However, apparently there's also tigers there, and they're all meeting together because now they are working together for a common enemy. But Colleen and Danny have to convince them not to attack Davos because of the fact that they have a plan and they really want that fist back. Also, BB doesn't really understand why we have to fight each other. Why do we have to beat each other up instead of beating them up in that sense? And I'm like, you really don't understand how training works, do you? Like, you train against each other in order to make both parties stronger. It's kind of like why Colleen and Danny were fighting at the beginning of the episode. So Baby is ready to just leave, and he has a flyer in his hand, but Joy is then like, hey, if you leave now, Davos is gonna kill you. So it's best to just stay behind, you know? Just stay here. It's your best chance for survival. If you leave now, he will find you and he will kill you. So later on, Joy calls Ward and is like, hey, yeah, about that thing that you bought for me, I want you to continue that on, okay? But you need to get into my apartment. Don't worry, here's the code. You can get into my apartment, and then you can grab the files that are needed. Because Ward is also trying to figure out how to say sorry for knocking someone up. So yeah, that doesn't really go well. His luck is not really that good, and his sister needs his help. So that is, I guess, a bit more of a priority because he doesn't even take the flowers with him. So he goes over to Joy's house, and he finds Walker there. And as he's searching for the files that he needs, he finds the files, but he also finds a picture, I guess, of their mother. And is like, oh no, Joy, what are you doing? Because the whole solar energy thing, that was actually a project that was started by their mother. And that is why Joy is so adamant about this project. However, she knows that if she dies, the best person to take on that project would be Ward. So Ward's like, oh no, she's gonna die. And Walker's there because she wanted to ask Joy for some files to be able to be redacted. However, she then asks Ward, and Ward is like initially no, and then later on he's like, okay, fine, you save my sister and I'll get you the files, because she is definitely on the path to die. So Davos is ready for his next step after a talk with Joy, because Joy told him like, look, okay, you might be doing good things, but people only see the bad stuff. You are going around killing people. That is what the people see. You need to tell them that you are a hero. So he takes his students with him somewhere. However, BB's like, I don't feel well, me tummy hurts, and then he gets locked into the dark room, and inside eventually gets freed by Joy. But basically, Davos takes his students to Yip in order to apologize for what they did to Yip. So they do that, and then Davos is like, don't worry about it, you're under my protection, and also you don't have to pay me, okay? I will protect you. And then Yip is kind of indifferent about it. It's like, look, I don't want any more trouble. And then Davos is like, you think I'm the bad guy? You think I'm the bad guy? Die! It's like, dude, you are the bad guy. What are you doing? I mean, I think also he thinks that Yip is still in league with the Tigers, but it's like, dude, basically you just killed an innocent person. Like, he has done nothing bad that we know of, obviously, but he's done nothing bad in this show, in this season so far, and you just killed him for no reason at all. However, at that point, the leader of the group, Rhino, is like, hey man, what are you doing? However, then someone else who I looked up, and apparently his name is Crank, he kills Rhino and is like, no mercy, and all that stuff. And then Davos is like, good boy. And everyone outside of obviously Rhino go back to the hideout. However, while they were gone, Joy freed BB, and it now needs help in order to search for the bowl, which he then finds. And then Davos comes back, so Joy goes to distract him, while BB grabs the bowl, takes it back to Colleen because they are going to need it. So he does that, he finds the bowl, he takes it away. Meanwhile, Colleen has an idea. I'm gonna take you to Fight Club. But Fight Club doesn't exist anymore, so I guess we can talk about Fight Club. But Fight Club nonetheless, the cage fight. And we're gonna fight. However, we're gonna play a little game about it too. You have 3 quote-unquote ribbons, and whoever loses the 3 of them first loses. And if you do this, you are able to face off against Davos. And then he instantly loses the first 2 because that is what is supposed to happen, you know? And then he takes off the other 2 from Colleen. However, once he has his hands on the 3rd, he actually can't do it, so he technically fails the test. And then he's later on says to end the episode that he came to a realization, and that is that Colleen should take the power of the Iron Fist. And man, if this came out today, I can already hear people going, woke, 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 and all that other crying stuff. Look, the way that this show ends, I partially like and partially hate. I'm curious about what they were planning, and we're never gonna see that sequel because we're never gonna get Iron Fist season 3, but it seemed like they had an idea for where the next season was gonna go, and I feel like if they just gave Danny the fist back and then ended the season by beating Davos, it would have been a perfect ending. However, because of the fact that I'm talking ahead, obviously, but because of the fact that they end this season on a huge cliffhanger, like I will say Iron Fist has the biggest cliffhanger out of all of the series, the only other one being really Daredevil, because like Luke Cage is a semi cliffhanger, but Luke Cage is not in a position of like, okay, this is what I'm gonna do next, you know, or ooh, villain is back. It's just like Luke Cage is now in charge of the club. Jessica Jones ends in I forgot how Jessica Jones actually ends, but I don't think it ends with that big of a cliffhanger. Punisher actually does not end with a cliffhanger, so this season for me ends with the biggest cliffhanger. That's what I hate about it the most, and that is actually why I'm less excited about Colleen getting the Iron Fist power, because like but you don't get that 3rd season. Whatever, doesn't matter. But that's the plan right now. Let's see how Colleen reacts in the next episode. So then he takes Colleen down to his hideout where he has been punching that door. However, she still doesn't want the Iron Fist. It's like, you can't just put your burden on me, okay? I do not want it. At least for now, you know? Because, you know, this is kind of like what happens in the season. It's like when Aquaman was like, I'm not joining your Justice League. And then later on, he joined the Justice League. It's exactly like that. Also, Crank calls BB, and BB tells him exactly where he is. And also, he learns of the death of Rhino. However, Crank blames Davos instead of saying that he did it himself. But basically, BB does tell him the location of where he is. Davos is also very upset with Joy, and he pushes her down something. Don't worry, she survives. She doesn't die, but she's not doing well. And Misty's back, baby. I told you she was gone in that last episode in order to get everything sorted out, but she sorted everything out. She got the task force, but that's not the only thing she got, because also she got Joy. She brought him here, and we get the official information that the one who brought him the box was Colleen's mother, because of the fact that the woman who gave him the box told him something, a story that only Colleen's mother knows. So she was here in New York and may still be, but we're never gonna get answers to that. This is a plot point that I don't think really leads to anything, or it happens at the end of this season. Either or. Like, if it doesn't finish up in this season, in the next episode, it's just an empty plot thread. Also, Ward got the file for Mary, and she reads through it, and then she burns it, so I guess it's official confirmation. there is a third. This was set up for like Daredevil Season 4 apparently that we're not gonna get. We're just gonna say yes, there is a third. And before we can go and get Joy, we need to pay a visit to an old friend, because even though Turk was like, look, I'm not a criminal anymore, he's still kind of a criminal, you know, because of the fact that he sells Walker some weapons. A really cool gun. And also Ward picks himself up a pistol as well, pays Turk, and also gives him some golfing advice, and then they head for time to rescue Joy. So Joy is like, look, Patch, if you're not gonna help me, just kill me. And Patch's like, yeah, well, you know what, it's his choice, and I'm just gonna go with his choice. Like, you can't believe all the stuff he's saying. Well, initially I didn't believe anything Davos was saying. I was basically just trying to save my own skin, but yeah, dude's got a point though. So he's on his side. Meanwhile, Danny and Colleen have arrived at the community center, and they were called there because of the fact that yes, Yang actually wants to go after Davos, and they once again try to convince her not to do it. And also BB appears and gives them the ball. So now we got the W. However, there's a little bit of a problem because of the fact that Crank went over to Davos. He now knows the location, and he's here with the boys. So the boys are standing outside waiting, as they should. Orders and all that stuff. So Colleen and Danny convince Yang to help the people escape this place, because if there's a bloodbath, the people might not survive. So let's go out the back. Meanwhile, BB escapes with the group and goes to the front in order to convince his friends not to do it. Just stop this, okay? Like, Rhino's dead. We lost it. Rhino was the one who really cared about us, and he's gone now. You know, like, maybe going with Davos isn't such a good idea. Yeah, but then he gets stabbed by Crank. So it was a good attempt. However, at that point, Colleen also opens the door and sees that BB got stabbed, and she goes in order to face off against Crank and the rest of them and beats them all up. Seems like they still needed a lot more training. Also, Davos isn't there because he went around the back, because I guess he expected the escape from behind. So then one of the hatchet men stays and he fights against Davos and instantly basically gets taken out and killed. So that didn't really work. And then Davos goes upstairs and sees Danny, and he's like, look, they're all guilty of something. It's like, yeah, okay. So now you're just blaming all the innocent people for the guilty ones as well. You're here to kill the tigers and the hatchets, but what about the children that are here? They are guilty by association, dang it. It's like, oh, okay, you're now gonna be one of those people. You know what? You could run for president. I'll say that right now. He could probably run for president. But at that point, Danny and Davos have a battle with each other, and it's actually a really cool battle, and eventually Danny is able to use the knockout stuff that he got from the guy from the community center in order to knock out Davos. And then the task force arrives in order to arrest the kids that Colleen was fighting. And now we got everything. We got the bull. We got Davos. Time to get him out of here in order to transfer the fist. And because of all of the stuff that has happened, Colleen is like, look, I tell everyone to fight for the community, but I won't. So I should take that fist so I could also fight for the community. So she's officially taken it. However, we also learned, thanks to BB, that Joy is at Davos's lair. So Misty goes to save Joy. Meanwhile, Danny and Colleen take Davos back to the dojo. So Misty arrives at the hideout and no one is really there. She finds Joy, however, then she gets attacked by Patch, and then Ward shoots Patch right in the neck. Doesn't kill him yet, and then Misty is like, okay, take your sister out of here, and then tries to keep Patch alive, but then Walker just shoots him in the chest a couple times, like, he wasn't gonna make it anyway. And then Misty's like, you're not a cop killer. And she's like, that's right. And then she turns around the gun and hits Misty. So I guess Misty's been kidnapped. She will be in the finale. Don't worry about it. And now it is time. We got the Crane sisters at the dojo. So Colleen gets an iron fist on her arm. She says she wants it to be like a combination of the iron fist and also the family crest. But it still just looks like the iron fist logo. I will just say that. Would have been nice if she had like I don't know, a set of like angel wings on her arm or anything. But yeah, but she gets that tattoo. And then she does the whole transferring, and she tries to pull the heart out, but Davos at this point wakes up and he's resisting a lot. So while Colleen is doing that, Davos is trying to attack her, and Danny steps in, touches them as well, and everyone gets blown away by Davos. So it looks like it didn't work, because even Davos is like, you failed, but then Colleen gets up and has a white fist, so it worked. Next time is the finale. I'm super excited. Alright boys, here we are at the finale of Iron Fist, and my goodness, it's a good one. So both Colleen and Davos are hurting because of the fact that they each have a piece of the Iron Fist, but they don't have the whole thing. However, before we can get the whole thing out of Davos, he escapes, sadly enough. Also, Walker has locked up Misty. However, she has an iron arm. She'll punch her way out of that thing if she has to. So Mary sets her sights. She gets everything ready, and she's ready for when Davos returns to just put one between the eyes. And also in the ambulance, Ward tells Joy everything that has happened, where he's basically just like, sorry, also I might be a dad soon. So there might be a chance for that family bond to return, but who's to say? We can't fully know because it got cancelled. So Davos returns to the lair, and he's like, alright, Patch, they're coming. I need your help. And then he sees the book and a bunch of blood, and is like, oh no, there's trouble here. And he instantly gets behind a pillar, dodging a bullet from Mary, and is like, really? You didn't have a sight on the entrance? Come on. Punisher, you are not. Who you think you are? She thinks she is female Punisher over here. You are not Punisher, okay? That was pathetic. But I guess while Mary is keeping Davos a bit distracted, it gives Colleen and Danny time to get there, because Davos eventually gets Mary out of her spot by just punching a concrete block on her way, and then Colleen and Danny almost get killed by Mary, and so Colleen goes off to fight Davos while Danny takes on Walker. And he's doing a pretty good job. He's holding his guard, and then later on Misty has apparently already broken out, and she joins in on that fight as well. Too bad her arm gets completely destroyed because of it. However, Danny then has the idea, a brilliant idea if I do say so myself, and he slices open a pipe, and he's like, grab your phone and flash it, as in mimicking rain and lightning and all that stuff. So then Mary comes back, and that fight is pretty much done. Everything is fine now. Initially, I thought maybe it was like a fake out, like, you know, Walker pretended to be Mary, but I don't even really know if Walker knows how Mary acts. But even then, she could have just pretended to be nice in order to get the upper hand. But I guess maybe the stream of water was actually working on her already, kind of keeping her locked in place. And Colleen has a really cool fight against Davos as well. She gets the upper hand, he gets the upper hand, she gets the upper hand. You know, a nice little back and forth until he actually gets the upper hand, almost pulls the dragon heart out of Colleen. But then Danny shows up and fights against Davos, and then together they beat Davos, and Colleen gets the dragon heart out of Davos and into her, and then he's like, kill me! End it! And she's like, then I would be just like you. So no. And there you go. Fight's done. We did it. We beat the bad guy, and we didn't have to kill him at all. Fantastic. Everything happened perfectly. Exactly the way it's planned. So then later on, the ambulance arrives in order for Davos, because he was pretty much beaten up, and Danny and Davos get to talking a little bit, and Davos pretends like he's the damn Punisher over here. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, there's going to be copycats. I've inspired people. I'm like, no, you haven't. Okay, no, you haven't. You have not been an influencing force so long in order to be able to inspire people. Get out of here with that whole thing. You're not the Punisher, okay? He has inspired people for all the wrong reasons, obviously, but still, he inspired people. You're no Punisher. So he gets taken away and locked up. Misty is also still kind of unsure if she wants to take the whole captain position, but she does like the idea of being called captain, so there might be hope for her yet. And also she's like, hey, Colleen, now that you got that fist, if Luke ever becomes trouble, you might be the only one who can actually stop him. Who knows, potentially setting something up for season 3, or Heroes for Hire maybe, but all that just goes nowhere. So then Danny returns to the dojo, and he cleans up a little bit. However, he finds the medallion on top of the box, and he turns it around, and he's like, and then he heads off. Apparently he just leaves after that. He writes a note for Colleen, and he just ups and books it. And also Colleen wants there to be a service at the community center for BB, a memorial service, R.I.P. the boy. And she also tells Yang to do good, because the triads don't need to hurt people, okay? You can also help protect the community. And Yang is like, well, we'll see, you know, we'll see, you know. I mean, I don't know what the weather forecast is, so I have no idea if I'm actually gonna do it. Also, if you get in my way, I will find you. So it's like, it's kind of like an iffy one. And also Ward opens his heart at the NA club, and then later on Bethy, which apparently is her name, she breaks up with Ward because she can only take care of 2 people. She can't take care of 3. So then Walker is back, and she goes to Joy in order to get payment. However, then she's like, yeah, you know what? There's actually a 3rd altar inside of me, and also, keep your money, because of the fact that you might actually be better in my corner as an ally, or at least as a resource. You're a powerful resource. I can use that. And then says like, you haven't seen the end of me yet, Joy, and then leave. And so Colleen returns returns home, Danny is gone, and she finds the note. And in the note, Danny basically states that the story that Choi told them that he heard from Colleen's mom actually sounded familiar. And it's because of the fact he heard about that in Kunlun, and that potentially one of the first original Iron Fists was actually a member of Colleen's family herself. And also on the family crest, if you turn it around, it's the Iron Fist logo. So he wants to learn all he can about the Iron Fist, so he's gonna go out there into the world in order to search. Meanwhile, he gets over to the plane, and then Ward is like, you are not leaving. I don't care about this whole 51% stuff, okay? Why do you keep talking about the 51% stuff, okay? I will make your life a living hell. He is not leaving New York, okay? And then Danny's like, why don't you just come with me? And Ward is like, no, I'm not going to come with you. And then Danny's like, no, you are. And he's like, okay, fine. So they're gonna go on a journey together in order to explore what the Iron Fist truly means. And then we have the months later thing where Colleen has now been able to channel the Iron Fist through her sword. And also, Danny has the Iron Fist back, and he is able to channel it through guns. And that's basically how the season ends. And man, I hate this so much. I want season 3 so badly, or at least a follow-up episode that just kind of ends things with this thing. Now, the thing is that there is a rumor that potentially Iron Fist is going to be back in Daredevil Born Again, just like Luke Cage. And I would love it if they were able to just tie up the loose end by just, I mean, they could have a dialogue about it, but I would just like them to tie up the loose end. Maybe Danny could tell Matt the story on how he got the Iron Fist back, and also that he found the true meaning of what the Iron Fist is, that kind of stuff. Or we could just see a flashback of him and Ward going around and actually finding the true meaning of the Iron Fist, and also Danny getting the Iron Fist back. That would be awesome. Now, I don't know if they are going to appear in Daredevil Born Again, because of the fact this is being recorded in June of 2025, even though technically this is the last review of November for 2025. So yeah, I like to work ahead of time so that I can give you guys weekly videos, as I like to do. But man, dude, this season is so good. I will say that to me this is number 5. If you rank all of the seasons, this one comes in at number 5. The only ones above it are Punisher season 1, Jessica Jones season 1, Daredevil season 1, a lot of season 1s here, and then also Daredevil season 3. But that's the top 5 for me. So number 1, Daredevil season 3, number 2 is Daredevil season 1, number 3 is Jessica Jones season 1, number 4 is Punisher season 1, and then number 5 is Iron Fist season 2. I think this season is absolutely phenomenal, and the fact that people don't even give this season a shot because of the fact that the first season is bad is sad. However, what I do love is the fact that it feels like Iron Fist gets punished, but they only get good things. Like, the fact that they got a season 2 to begin with is insane, because people hated this season when it came out. They also didn't like Iron Fist as a character within the MCU, I guess. They hated everything about this. And then it's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna give you a season 2, but we're gonna fire the showrunner. We're gonna give you a new showrunner who did a phenomenal job, by the way. Raven Metzner, or however you pronounce that last name. Anyway, he is the showrunner for Iron Fist season 2, and he did a phenomenal job in this season. Scott Buck ruined the first season, but Raven was able to pull out the best for season 2, and I'm happy that he is in charge. But like, afterwards, they also technically punished Iron Fist by giving them less episodes, with 10 episodes, but that was just for the better, because I've seen so many people over the years say that these Netflix seasons should be 10 episodes. They shouldn't be 13 episodes, because a lot of these seasons, they don't have the material for 13 episodes. Jessica Jones season 2, Luke Cage season 2, Iron Fist season 1, even though technically that needed a better showrunner as well. But all of those would have benefited heavily, also Luke Cage season 1, from having a 10 episode season instead of a 13 episode season. And maybe also Punisher season 2, but we're not there yet, so I'm talking about all the stuff that we have had so far. I will say the only ones that truly showed us that they needed 13 episodes were Daredevil season 1 and Jessica Jones season 1. And I would also say Punisher season 1, even though I feel like there's some stuff you might be able to cut in order to make it 10 episodes. That one is more of an in-between for me, but the rest of the stuff, it's like, yeah, 10 episodes is definitely better than 13 episodes. It's also just a better watch. I love the pacing in this season, and I love this season. This season to me is fantastic, and I would highly recommend you watch this. I would love to see Finn Jones back as Danny Rand, because he was so much better written in this season compared to like the Defenders and the first season. He was like a whiny little female dog, but here he is actually, you know, wise in that sense, kind of wise. He's still sometimes a thundering dumbass, but he's a wiser person, you know? He's not the thundering dumbass that he was before, and I'm a big fan of this one. So I'm just gonna call it here. So let me know what you guys thought about Iron Fist Season 2 in the comment section down below. Obviously, you can go spoiler-filled. And with that being said, thank you all so very much for watching, and I do hope you guys have enjoyed. And if you did, please like button, subscribe if you're new, if not, sorry, turn on notifications, and don't forget to check out the Let's Play channel, link in the description and at the end of the video. And I'll see you guys next week when I do my horrible review of the first Pokemon movie, because it was the first time I had to tackle a Pokemon movie, and I didn't really know how to tackle it. So I will say that it is actually trash. No, I'm not gonna re-record it, because I stand technically by what I said. The spoiler talk actually isn't the bad part. It's just I didn't know how to talk about the characters themselves in the review itself. But I did the best that I could. But I have learned a lot since then, so the second movie is going to be better. And after that, the week after that, on the 11th of December, we will be back with the power of Daredevil Season 3. Man, I can't wait, dude. It's my favorite thing of Netflix. But yeah, I'll see you guys for Pokemon next week. Bye!